Okay, and we continue. So for the next few videos, I'm going to be reading off my checklist because I don't want to miss anything, and we've got quite a lot to get through. If I look a little bit flushed from time to time, it's because my doctor insisted on giving me a flu shot yesterday. It comes and goes. Anyway, okay, so something I forgot to mention in the last clip that happened in Hamburg is that when they were still planning to do the hysterectomy, I put in a request that if my ovaries seemed okay, if they could please leave them, because I wasn't keen to jump headfirst into menopause on top of everything else. And even though they ended up not doing the hysterectomy, they tucked my ovaries in behind my kidneys to try and protect them from getting fried with the radiation that was to come. In retrospect, I don't actually know if it helped at all. I'm actually still not 100% sure if I am now in menopause or not. I still have, I think, about 6 months to go, and then that can be assessed. But anyway, that was also quite painful, obviously. And then, right. So the tattoo, the tattoo. I initially wanted to get a tattoo on my skull, in case, well, not my skull, my head, if all my hair fell out. And as you can see, although my hair is very much misbehaving and doing strange things, like some of it's curling, some of it's straight, some of it's frizzing, it did not actually fall out to the point where a tattoo would have been a worthwhile thing to do. I didn't know that at the time though. So when I found the concept that I really liked, it wasn't a tattoo that would have fit nicely on a head to begin with. It had to be straight, okay? So I had it done on my arm instead, and I'm very happy with my tattoo. It's a sword with a wing and my favorite Bible verse, and it brought me a lot of comfort going through treatment and looking down at my arm and just knowing that I'm not alone. Okay, now on to Hanover. Let me just start off by telling you that nobody wants cancer, but getting cancer in Germany is probably the best place where something like that could happen to you, because they take really good care of you. What I can say on the slightly negative side is that it doesn't always seem like the right hand knows what the left hand is doing. The departments are very much operating in silos. So when you deal with the chemo doctors, then it falls under hematology. When you're dealing with the radiation doctors, it falls under Strahlentherapie. There's a whole section about the Frauenklinik, and because of the nature of my cancer, I had to deal with everybody, and they don't always talk to each other. Even though they have a central database, not everything is noted in there, and sometimes little slip-ups happen. But in my case, I was very fortunate that it wasn't major, for me anyway. But anyway, we'll unpack that a little bit. So the first thing that happened was I had to go in for consultation. I had to go in for planning CT. I had an appointment with a Pflegeberaterin, which was absolutely amazing. I had a chance to ask a lot of questions. They had a little Lego model of the radiation and what it would look like. I got guidelines on how to take care of myself during this process, and that included clothing, which was hilarious to me. Some of it actually can be useful, some of it maybe not so much. So they said that your skin will be very tender from the radiation. So the very first thing to note is that you cannot use any body products with any sort of scent or any sort of color. Obviously, there are some people that do that anyway. Some people's skins are more sensitive than others. I bought the scent-free baby products, and I never regretted it. Okay, Andy said I smelled like cardboard. Like wet cardboard actually. But I never burnt. There was one day, they also gave me a whole range of skincare products that I had to apply to the specific radiation area. I was marked with a permanent marker every day with these little crosses, how they calibrate the machine. And sometimes these obviously fade because during a shower you have water running over it. Permanent marker is not so permanent. And the one day I forgot to put on, I was a little bit rushed for time, I forgot to put on the creams they gave me at the times they told me to do it, and I felt it that day. I felt it that day when I came back home. It felt like a really bad sunburn, but on my bum. Bum and lower back. So I learned my lesson early on and stuck to the rules they gave me with regards to the body products. Then on the on the clothing, they said no tight fitting clothing, always loose and comfortable. No tight fitting underwear, if possible. Like you can use boxer shorts, because you do strip down quite a lot, and that gives you a little bit of dignity, I guess. And if your skin becomes so sensitive that you can't even handle the loose clothing, the advice was to firstly either wear your stuff inside out so that the seams don't irritate your skin, or to get patches of silk and put them in the spots where it tends to rub. So for people who were worried about me losing my hair and looking funny, I wasn't really that worried about it. It would grow back, but I thought to myself that if I ever ended up having to go grocery shopping with my clothes inside out and random patches of silk flapping in the wind, not having hair would be the least of my worries in the looking funny department. Then foods, they gave me a recommended list of foods that I could eat and foods that I could not eat. There were some surprises on there. It wasn't like you could survive on it quite comfortably, but like a lot of the stuff that I really enjoy, I wasn't allowed to have for about 4.5 months. No red meat, no pork. The only meat you could have was chicken or fish. Nothing that could cause any gas, because they are also cooking your intestines in the same go, so you can end up really injuring yourself. So no peas, no beans, no cabbage, no onion, no garlic, no spices. You could have salt and pepper. You can have sugar and honey, no artificial sweeteners, moderate dairy. What was the other thing that was quite interesting? I forget now. But anyway, there was a long list. If you are going through this yourself and you don't get a list like that, you're more than welcome to send me a message with your email address and I'll forward you what I have. Okay, and then during the course of the treatment, obviously your emotions are all over the place. I remember that I got off on quite a rocky start. My first radiation appointment was scheduled for the same day that I was admitted into hospital the first time. I should maybe start off by saying that for 9 weeks I had to spend a minimum of 3 days a week in hospital. So the first 5 weeks was radiation every day. If you only had radiation on the day, you would come in at the time that they give you, which would change every day, and you only get it 2 days in advance if you're lucky. So you can't really plan anything around it. You are at their beck and call, which is fine, I guess. And then chemo would usually happen on a Thursday, so on a Wednesday you would get admitted, and on the Thursday they would do the chemo, and on the Friday they would observe you, and then you could go home on the Friday. If it didn't go well, you could maybe go home on the Saturday. Yeah, that's up and down a bit. 5 weeks of that, and then 4 weeks of brachytherapy. So that would entail that you go in on a Thursday, get prepped, and then the Friday you would have the procedure, which is 3 hours under anesthetic, and then the Saturday you would usually be released if they checked your blood and made sure that you had no internal bleeding or complications. So the first time I had to go for radiation, I was already checked into the hospital. I rocked up at the radiation department. You have to always bring your little ID badge because they scan you and the machine is set for you. You have to bring a towel and you have to bring no metal, obviously. So I went down to the help desk and there was nobody there to clock in with, which was the procedure that I had been told. But there was a sign up saying that you should just go directly through because the help desk is only manned until 4. Alright, fine, so I go through. I try and walk into one of the rooms. I get shunted out a little bit sharply, and now I don't know what's going on. I sit and wait there for an hour. Other people come and go. I asked them what time their appointments were, and it was long after mine. So I got very emotional, and I couldn't find anyone to help me. So I found Andy, and I was bawling my eyes out. And then a random doctor walked past me, and I didn't even ask anybody. I just shoved the phone in and let Andy cock them out in German. So I don't know what exactly he said to them, but I was on the machine roughly 10 minutes later, which was great. So I spoke to one of the doctors in the ward about it the next day, and I said to him, you know, I really appreciate the work that you guys do, but you have to keep in mind, you work with this every day. So to you, it's business as usual. But this is my first time having cancer, and I have no idea how the procedures and processes work here. So if you have a sign up that says go directly through to the relevant rooms, and there is actually another procedure where you're supposed to tell somebody in a specific room that you're there, but that's not on any sign anyway, then it makes it really hard for first-time people to find their feet. And it's just a little tip, you know, which they took on the chin, which was fine. Okay, and then let's see. Okay, with the chemo, which everybody dreads, I will say that I'm sure you're aware that there's various types of chemo. The particular type that I got it's called cisplatin, and it doesn't generally let you lose all your hair. It's not to say that it's not a strong chemo. It's very, very strong. It has a lot of potential side effects that were shared with me very elaborately, and that I had to sign off of, that I knew. Some of them are quite wild. You know, before all this, I wasn't really someone who was worried with potential side effects because I never seemed to get them. And now I've had a complete mindset change because I think my medical luck has run out. If there's a potential side effect on there, it's pretty obscure. I have an above average chance of getting it. So now I really pay attention. Anyway, so the first thing they said is that it can affect your hearing to the point of losing your hearing. Your eyesight, you can pick up nerve damage that I've got. Okay, the hearing and the eyesight, I have a little bit of that, but it's hard to say if it's age or if it's chemo. It's probably a bit of a combo of the two, but it's not too wild. It's just now and then that I look at trees and I can't actually see the leaves. I just see like a vibration of sorts. And my hearing is, you know, it comes and goes. Anyway, the nerve damage feels like pins and needles, mostly in your hands and feet. Sometimes it goes into the bones. It feels like a million little knives stabbing you. It's not so that, you know, in my case, it's not so that I can't do anything, but sometimes if it's really bad, it's hard for me to hold heavy things. What has recently started happening is that occasionally when I go to bed, when I close my eyes, it feels like there's a light inside. Like, it's actually quite disconcerting when you open your eyes and it's pitch dark, and you close your eyes and it's like a disco in your head. It feels like just light. It's just light. I refer to it as my disco head. And it's not, the head part is not altogether unpleasant. It's just quite surprising. Anyway, so I've read up about it, and apparently vitamin B12, 1 and 6, but mostly 12, can sometimes help you to mitigate that a bit. So I'm taking those vitamins, and my doctor said that I must try and jump on the trampoline as well. That might also help. So, but it might be temporary, it might be permanent, I don't know. In any event, it's the lesser of two evils. The other thing they told me that that particular chemo could do is that in 20 years, it has a pretty good chance of giving me leukemia. So I said to the doctor when he mentioned that, I said, so to treat my cancer, you are giving me something that will give me a different kind of cancer. And he said, yes. He also said that without taking this chemo, you won't have 20 years. So that was a significant moment. And yeah, it really makes you think a bit there. As far as the chemo goes, it wasn't all smooth sailing. The first time was okay. It was obviously a big mental hurdle to jump over, to sit there and let them pump me full of poison. And we get to a point where you realize that it is poison, and it's a competition to see who is the strongest, me or the cancer. And the second time I got a little bit sick. I was coughing quite badly that week. And when I went for my normal radiation appointments, I mentioned it to the doctor on duty. And I said, I'm not sure if I should be here. I'm not feeling great. I'm coughing a lot. And I think it's hay fever. I don't have a fever, but I'm not feeling well. And he said, it doesn't matter. As long as there's no fever, they're going ahead with the treatment, and it's business as usual. I'll just have to get through it. Must drink tea and rest as much as possible. So that's what I did. But when I booked in for chemo, they actually have a very different set of rules, and I didn't mention it to them because I thought I had already mentioned it at the service point, which I did. They just didn't tell the other lot because they didn't think it was serious. So what then happened was that I got the chemo, and they always do a nose swab on you when you check in. But for some reason, mine didn't get processed straight away, and only after I had had the chemo did a very cranky head ward nurse come and look for me to let me know that I actually tested positive for something called influenza 3. No, wait, para-influenza 3, which is in itself probably not that serious, but I was traipsing up and down a ward where everybody has a compromised immune system, and I was not only putting my own life in danger, but everybody around me, which is how she explained it to me. And I felt terrible because it was never my intention to endanger anybody. I did mention that I reported it, and they didn't seem to think it was serious unless I had a fever. She stormed off in a huff to go and tell somebody what she thought of that opinion. Luckily, it wasn't me, so I managed to redirect that. And it was okay. The third time went okay also. And then the fourth time, by that time, my body was quite run down. And I got it, but I felt not great. Like, not great at all. And the blood test that I did the next morning, the doctor came to tell me that my white blood count was very, very low, dangerously so, and that they would have to test me the next week to see if they could go ahead with the chemo or not. And they couldn't. It was just too low. So I was supposed to have 5 sessions of chemo, but I ended up just having 4, which they said was sufficient, so happy with that. Nausea, yes, of course. You are so nauseous. Even with the anti-nausea medication, you're very nauseous, okay? The only thing that helped me was potato salad. I know it's really funny, but I ate so much potato salad that now, post-treatment, I can hardly stand the sight of it. There was one week where I felt so terrible that I ended up eating 2 kilograms of potato salad in little cereal bowl servings because I just felt so horrible, and it's the only thing that made me feel slightly better. Then you get very, very bloated from chemo because they add a lot of liquid. So much water. Like, it feels like 4 or 5 liters that go in fluids, chemo included. And you are only allowed to pick up 2 kilograms during the course of this. So when they hooked me on a drip, they usually started at 10 in the morning. It's supposed to take 4 hours, but very often, actually just about every time, I only managed to get off the drip again but somewhere between 10 and 12 in the evening. And while you're getting the chemo, not the water is fine, you can move around with that, but with the chemo you're not allowed to walk around and go outside because it's quite dangerous if the needle pops out the vein and goes into your tissue. And other than that, that particular chemo can't be exposed to sunlight, so it comes in a green bag and you are supposed to stay in the shadows and as quiet as possible while it's going. Alright, so where are we now? Let's see. Okay. Right, music. Music was an absolute lifesaver for me. I'm not being dramatic, but people are very chatty in German hospitals. Like, as soon as they know that you even know a little bit of German, they want to chat, okay? Which is lovely, but when you're getting your treatment, sometimes you just want a little bit of quiet. Well, I do anyway. So I made myself some playlists, and I would put my headphones on and just relax into it. I can't share the entire playlist with you that I made for chemo, but what I did is every week there was one song that would stand out for me, and I made a playlist of those, my earworms. So I'll put a link in the description for that. And there's another one that one week that I got a very serious infection. I had insane fever. You'll see later on, I'll tell you about that. And I also have a fever playlist, so that link will also be in there. And what else can I tell you? Okay, so the Pflegeberaterin also gave me forms to apply for disability, which I thought was interesting, but I filled it out anyway. And this was in the beginning when the treatment just started. And I had to supply all the medical reports from all the hospitals up to that point. For some reason, I had to sign a power of attorney for Andy so that he could accept mail on my behalf. But in the end, I've got a disability card now. I'm considered 80% disabled for the next 5 years. And even though I can't really do what I did before, I mean, I can hardly do anything, to be honest, and it's already quite a few months post-treatment. I'm quite weak. I'm very tired all the time. There are certain things that I just can't do that I could do before. I don't feel 80% disabled, but I suppose if you compare what I could do before with what I can do now, you know, it's probably a fair assessment. It's just very strange to think of yourself as disabled. You know, this is always something that happens to other people. But to give you an example, before all of this nonsense, I cycled everywhere I wanted to go, and some days cycling just to my clients and back, I would eat about 40 kilometers for the day. And yeah, I was a little bit tired, but I mean, I was not wiped out after 40 kilometers. And now if I cycle to the grocery store and back, that's about 2 kilometers, and I have to sleep for at least 3 hours after that. That's how tired I am. So maybe 80% is not actually an unfair assessment of that. What else can I tell you? Oh, So I obviously can't cycle to and from treatment during the course of this. I have no immune system while this is going on. How will I get to where I need to go? I told them, you might as well put me on the other side of the moon for treatment because I can't get there. And they said, no, you get a taxi shine. So it's like a voucher that the medical aid pays for your transport. It's the normal state Krankenkasse, the public one, and you have to just get it approved, which is obvious, and then they will pay for all your trips to treatment and back, and you only have to pay, how much was it? I think it was €10 on the first trip and €10 on the last trip, and the rest is covered. And that was such a blessing because there's no ways that I could get there otherwise. There's oncologists a little bit closer to me, like in Celle instead of Hanover, but they don't do brachytherapy there, and it is better to have it done all in one hand, as they say. So I'm really glad that I had that opportunity. I also made some really good friends. The taxi drivers, you get to know them. In particular, Lisa was a lifesaver. This woman, she's actually the owner of this particular company. She is just so amazing, I had the best chats with her about everything. If she saw that I was battling, she always tried to do a little extra to brighten my day. The one day she bought me potato salad. Have you ever had a taxi driver buy you potato salad because you're nauseous? I thought it was so sweet, really above and beyond. And one day I said to her, I've been craving pumpkin, but because it's out of season, I can't get it anyway. And do you know this woman actually drove out of her way to go and find me frozen pumpkin at the store very far from me, and delivered it to my house while I wasn't even here. She phoned Andy and arranged to drop off my frozen pumpkin. She's an angel. She is an angel, I have no doubt about it, and I'm very grateful that I got to know her. Alright, okay, so I did that. In Germany, when you are booked off sick for a long time like this, like initially, I can have a little giggle about this now, I thought that I would be off sick for 2 weeks after the hysterectomy, but now it seems that by the end of this, I will have probably been booked off for a year. And that is to say that when the time comes and I get assessed, that I will be able to start working again. So, what will you do without an income? Yes. You will die. No, okay, it's not that dramatic. Well, I mean, it is for a lot of people. For me, I must say this is another really a blessing of getting this in Germany, is that the Krankenkasse covers you for Krankengeld, which is a certain percentage of your normal salary, and that you are covered in the case of a serious illness like this for, I think it's up to 72 or 73 weeks, which is, it's mind-blowing. I mean, I actually have never heard of such a thing before, and the people here accept it as so standard and run of the mill, and even still complain about it. If I think what would have happened to me if this was diagnosed in South Africa, then, I mean, to start off with, the country is in a massive recession and I was retrenched. So one of the first things I had to let go, unfortunately, was private medical care. I did not even have the funds available to go for the test, so I wouldn't have been diagnosed. That's the first thing. The second thing is that nobody obviously would pay me while I'm off sick. Even if you're permanently employed, you have a limited amount of sick leave available. And when that's done, that's done. I'm way past what would be covered in the absolute best case scenario. So that really is a blessing. And on top of that, even if you have private medical aid in South Africa, you end up co-paying a lot of things. So paying my portion of the treatment would have been, undoable. So even if by the off chance I did get diagnosed before it was too late, I would not be able to afford the treatment in any event. So there you go. Yeehaw. Deutschland boer, ne? Okay, so and a positive thing that I can tell you about the chemo, since you have to find the bright side, is that for roughly 2 months there was a period where no mosquitoes would touch me. And it was midsummer, they would not bite me. It was, I wouldn't say it was delightful, but it definitely was one of the better things about chemo. And even though I didn't lose all my hair, all my grey hair fell out. Okay, since then most of them are back again, but it was a little bit strange. And now, one more thing. Sorry about the list, but I don't want to miss anything. When or if, and hopefully this never happens to you, but when or if you ever get diagnosed with something like this, you will have to decide if you're gonna do it alone, if you're only going to tell a few close people, or if you will be open about it. And I was open about it. And the reason is that since we moved here, I've always shared our stories. And when I got diagnosed, I scoured the internet for information, and hearing people's personal stories, even though it wasn't always what I wanted to hear, it really helped me to prepare for what was to come. And I thought that I might do the same. I'd been sharing everything that happened week by week on Facebook, and I got a lot of support, like a lot, and many people that actually went for their checkups just based on my experience. Who knows? Maybe it did help someone. I have amazing friends and family that have really, really carried me through this with their thoughts, their prayers, their calls. I wasn't always the best patient. Sometimes I was just too tired to give them the necessary attention that they actually deserved. But it was hard, and I did the best I could. And I really do appreciate it, even if it didn't always sound like it. Denise came to visit me for 2 weeks from South Africa, which was such an amazing surprise. I never expected it, and it was really nice to have her here. And then my brother came all the way from New Zealand to come and look after me when treatment started for a month, leaving behind his wife and his 2 little boys to gun it without him. And it's a massive, massive sacrifice. And what can I say? I have the best people in my corner. Okay, I thought, okay, wait. Okay, brachytherapy. Now we're done with chemo for a bit. Brachytherapy. That is radiation from within. It is very invasive. It's very intense also. It's a lot stronger, the radiation, and more focused than what you get in the normal radiation that you did for 5 weeks before that. In fact, the 5 weeks before can't prepare you for what brachytherapy will put you through. It's insane. Chemo was rough for me, but brachytherapy put me on the floor. It was incredibly taxing on me, both mentally and physically. It was a lot worse than chemo. It's obviously a lot more effective also, but anyway. Pain, I remember a lot of pain because every time after the procedure, it would be really hard for me actually to pee. Unfortunately, in my second week, I discovered why that might be the case. So what happened in the second week was that there was some sort of an emergency and they ran out of anesthetists. So they decided to only put me under for 1 of the 3 hours, and then the rest I had to do awake. The doctor claims he told me about it and that I agreed. I hard deny that, because after what happened to me in Hamburg, there's no ways I would have agreed to that. No ways whatsoever. Be that as it may, I guess it was a way to face a trauma, in a way, to experience a new trauma. And I'm grateful for the nurse that was there. I gripped her so tight I almost had to radiate her with me, but I did let her go eventually. I was hysterical. For those 2 hours, I did not stop crying. I was in a lot of pain. I was very uncomfortable. I was horrified. And when they were removing the equipment, okay, maybe I should just tell you, they pop these rods into your nethers, and depending on the size of your tumor, there might also be needles directing the radiation. And then they put you with all these things into a CT scanner to see if it's aligned properly, and then they nuke you, okay? And then they remove all the equipment, and then usually they bring you to, and you're off you go to recovery room. So I woke up, give me a second. I woke up on the table with a lot of equipment in me, and that was then before they moved me to the CT, and anyway, all the things happened. When they removed it, I realized why it was hard for me to pee after the procedure the previous week, because they didn't properly deflate the catheter balloon, and it's bruising. It's straightforward bruising. So when I had the opportunity to complain about the procedure and being awake for it, I also definitely mentioned that, just take the 2 seconds to deflate the balloon, because it makes a 3-day difference to me and my recovery every time. Psychologically, it was very, very bad. Also, what happened was that, if you remember my breast abscess, that was my check engine light, as I sometimes refer to it, for this whole situation. In the beginning, suddenly flared up, I guess, maybe with exposure to additional bacteria and having an immune system that was pretty run down by that time. It flared up with a vengeance, and even though the breast abscess in itself is probably not that serious, to me, when I think of it, I think of being diagnosed. And I lost my shit because, sorry YouTube, I lost my shit because I thought that it was trying to tell me something else is wrong, and I don't know what it is. And so I requested some psychological help. A counselor came to see me. We had a couple of sessions. I got to see a lot of people because they know how to clear up this infection as well. I was put on 2 different antibiotics to try and clear it. One of them I developed an allergic reaction to, so my face went bright red and peeled 3 times in a row, straight forward. It was so itchy, it almost made me crazy. The psychiatrist that I got to see was lovely. My German is okay, but I can't talk about my feelings in German. I just don't. I don't have the vocabulary, and it just feels a bit unnatural to me. And she could speak English, but I think her mother tongue was Spanish, I think. Anyway, so the one day she said to me, she asked me, why was I so upset about the abscess? And I said, I know it's irrational fear, but this is what I fear, is that there's something else wrong, and my body's trying to tell me. And also, I'm afraid that I go through all this, and the cancer can just come back, anytime, any place. And I fear that some of the things that I have to take to treat the cancer will give me a different kind of cancer. And there's a lot that I'm afraid of. And she said, these fears are not irrational, you know. So at least there's that. Hold on a second. Anyway, she can't address them for me, but what she could do is give me some, or try and teach me some methods to just roll with it, cope with it, you know, try and prioritize things. So I do that. Okay, then I must tell you about, let's see. Oh, just about every doctor that I had to deal with in Hanover could speak English. There was one doctor, however, that spent quite some time in the Netherlands, and because of my very strong Afrikaans accent, he spoke Dutch to me one day, and it was like a light just went on, a switch was flung. I couldn't help myself. I just started talking Afrikaans to him the moment I heard him, and he understood me perfectly. I understood him perfectly. It was very funny. I could talk to my doctors in German. Sometimes I did, if they got stuck with me in a sentence. But I must say, in an open ward where you have very little privacy, it was nice also to be able to speak to them in English and have a little bit of a private consultation in a room full of people. So I thank them for their efforts in helping me and in understanding whatever issues that came up. Okay, now some more photos. We'll take a short break and then we'll get back into the next thing.
dass sie dann zum Abschluss dann halt die Glocke läuten, ne? Einfach zum Zeichen, dass es fertig ist, dass sie jetzt durch sind. Und ja, meistens versammeln wir uns alle gerne immer, um auch nochmal sie persönlich zu gratulieren. Und wenn sie wollen, können sie was sagen. Wenn sie eine Rede haben, können sie gerne eine Rede halten. Wenn nicht, dann auch okay, dann können sie einfach die Glocke läuten und wir klatschen dabei auch noch alle.
So, ich wollte sagen, ich bin fertig mit die Chemo und jetzt kommt die Afterlearning. Und ich will sagen, vielen Dank für die sehr gutes Besorgen, was alle für mich gegeben hat. Und das bedeutet zu viel von mir. Ja. Und dann hatte ich gesagt, ich klingel diese Glocke so wie quasi Motor, okay? Right?